این غده سرطانی از هنگام آغاز مرحله‌ای رشد کرده.
He pledged, quote, there will be no Israel in 25 years.
Welcome to the Global Insight, where we delve into the intricate web of global geopolitics. Today, we're focusing on Iran's recent actions and their profound implications for the Middle East, with particular emphasis on the intensifying conflict with Israel. The relationship between Iran and Israel, once marked by cooperation, has transformed into one of deep hostility, especially since the Iranian Revolution in 1979, which reshaped Tehran's foreign policy and placed Israel in the crosshairs of its ideological ambitions. Historically, Iran and Israel were regional allies, linked by strategic cooperation that benefited both nations. However, the Islamic Republic's establishment in 1979 shifted Iran's stance dramatically, adopting a fiercely anti-Israel position fueled by religious, political, and ideological differences. Decades of covert proxy battles, economic sanctions, and international diplomacy have shaped this complex relationship, but the current escalation marks a dangerous new phase. With the October 1st, 2024 missile and drone strikes on Israel, Iran has transitioned from indirect proxy conflicts to a more direct, open confrontation, raising the stakes for regional stability. Welcome to the Global Insight. On October the 1st, 2024, the long-simmering tensions between Iran and Israel erupted into a significant escalation, with Iran launching over 300 drones and missiles at Israeli targets. This unprecedented military strike involved a sophisticated arsenal of 170 drones, 30 cruise missiles, and 110 ballistic missiles. Iran's decision to directly target Israeli territory marked a dramatic shift in its military strategy, transitioning from its previous reliance on proxy groups and covert operations to overt warfare. The attack was framed as a direct retaliation for an Israeli airstrike on April 1st, 2024, which targeted the Iranian consulate in Damascus, Syria. The Israeli strike had killed several high-ranking Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps officials, including Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Zahedi, escalating the conflict into dangerous new territory. This direct military engagement represents a pivotal moment, not only because of the scale and boldness of Iran's strike, but also due to the broader ramifications for regional stability. For years, Israel and Iran had engaged in a shadow war, operating through proxies and limited strikes. However, Iran's decision to respond openly signals a new phase in this conflict, increasing the potential for wider regional involvement. The use of advanced drone and missile technology underscores the evolving nature of warfare in the Middle East, with devastating consequences not only for Israeli defense capabilities, but also for surrounding nations caught in the crossfire of this escalating feud. The shift from covert skirmishes to open warfare began in earnest on October 7, 2023, following the shocking Hamas attacks on Israel, which sparked a surge of hostilities across the region. Iran, a longtime supporter of Hamas, saw its role in the conflict intensify as the group's actions drew a sharp Israeli military response. Iranian-backed militias and Hezbollah in Lebanon also became more entangled, as Iran's influence extended beyond Gaza into Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. The involvement of these proxy groups not only complicates the battlefield, but also broadens the scope of the conflict, drawing more nations and non-state actors into a web of retaliation. The operational logic driving this conflict is clear. As long as Iran continues to back militant organizations such as Hamas and Hezbollah, Israel is likely to respond with military force, targeting Iranian assets and personnel both directly and indirectly. This cycle of attacks and counterattacks creates a volatile and unpredictable environment, with both sides locked in an escalating series of military confrontations. Each new strike risks widening the conflict, pulling in additional actors and destabilizing an already fragile region. The persistence of these dynamics highlights the difficulty in finding a diplomatic resolution, as the conflict becomes increasingly entrenched in a destructive pattern of retribution and retaliation. Iran's long-standing strategy of supporting proxy groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and various militias across Iraq and Syria has been central to its efforts to project power and challenge Israeli dominance in the region. These groups have become pivotal actors, conducting attacks on Israeli targets and intensifying regional instability. The assassination of key figures within these proxy organizations, often through precision Israeli airstrikes, has provoked fierce responses, fueling a dangerous cycle of tit-for-tat violence. As a result, the security dynamics of the Middle East have grown more precarious, with every retaliation threatening to spiral into broader conflict. Recent hostilities have had a unifying effect on Israel's traditional allies in the region. Nations like Jordan and several Gulf states, which have long viewed Iran's ambitions with suspicion, are now openly aligning with Israel to counter Tehran's aggressive maneuvers. The US, through its Central Command, or CENTCOM, has played a crucial role in facilitating this cooperation, orchestrating joint military exercises and intelligence sharing initiatives aimed at curbing Iranian influence. This emerging regional alliance signals a significant shift, as Arab nations that once distanced themselves from Israel are now finding common cause in resisting Iran's expanding footprint across the Middle East. The regional implications are profound, as this coalition seeks to balance a more assertive Iran, reshaping traditional alliances and further polarizing an already divided region. The escalating conflict between Iran and Israel has drawn the attention of major global powers, heightening concerns about the potential for widespread regional instability.
The Iranian regime is the leading state sponsor of terror. It exports dangerous missiles, fuels conflicts across the Middle East, and supports terrorist proxies and militias such as Hezbollah, Hamas, the Taliban, and Al-Qaeda.
Countries such as the US, UK, France, and Jordan have actively engaged in intercepting Iranian missiles aimed at Israel, reflecting their vested interest in preventing further escalation. The conflict's ripple effects extend far beyond the Middle East, though, with the possibility of disrupting crucial international trade routes, especially in the Gulf region, which is home to key oil and gas supplies. Any sustained conflict could trigger severe consequences for the global economy, increasing oil prices and creating new security challenges for shipping lanes like the Strait of Hormuz. The US has been particularly vocal in its responses to the growing hostilities. Since taking office in January 21, President Joe Biden has reaffirmed America's ironclad support for Israel, a pledge he has reiterated in the face of increasing Iranian aggression.
Made it clear to the Iranians, be careful.
This support highlights the US's strategic interest in preserving stability within the region, a cornerstone of American foreign policy in the Middle East. Biden's administration has emphasized that any further attacks from Iranian territory would be met with swift and decisive reprisals, reinforcing the US's stance as both a deterrent and a stabilizing force.
Silence is complicity.
The international community watches closely as the possibility of a broader conflict looms, one that could reshape not only the political landscape of the Middle East, but also the broader global security architecture. Despite its aggressive military stance and regional influence, Iran faces significant internal challenges that could hinder its ability to sustain prolonged military operations abroad. Economic sanctions, particularly those reimposed after the US withdrew from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action or JCPOA in 2018, have severely crippled Iran's economy.
The United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
With inflation rates soaring above 40% and economic contraction deepening, everyday life for many Iranians has become increasingly difficult. Rising unemployment and deteriorating living standards have sparked widespread public discontent, further straining the regime's ability to maintain its domestic legitimacy. Protests have erupted in cities across Iran, driven by anger over high prices, economic mismanagement, and a lack of political freedoms. This growing internal unrest creates a dilemma for the Iranian leadership as they face mounting pressure to address both domestic concerns and external threats. The regime's precarious domestic situation may influence its foreign policy decisions, pushing Tehran towards more aggressive actions as a means of diverting public attention from its economic failures. However, this strategy comes with significant risks. While Iran's leadership is under pressure to demonstrate military strength in response to perceived threats, they must also avoid provoking a full-scale war with Israel or exacerbating internal instability. This balancing act between external posturing and internal cohesion makes Iran's next moves critical to both its survival and the stability of the region. The need to maintain a strong front against adversaries like Israel could lead Tehran to escalate tensions, but doing so risks inflaming its own domestic challenges, threatening the regime's grip on power. The economic ramifications of the escalating Iran-Israel conflict are profound and far-reaching, with potential disruptions to key trade routes posing an immediate threat to global markets. The Strait of Hormuz, a critical artery for global oil supplies, carries roughly 20% of the world's oil. Any escalation in military activity in this region could severely impact energy prices worldwide. Iran has repeatedly threatened to disrupt this vital shipping lane during times of heightened tension, and should these threats materialize, the global economy could face significant upheaval. A sudden spike in oil prices would ripple through industries from transportation to manufacturing, increasing costs for consumers and straining national economies already vulnerable to inflationary pressures. Beyond the energy sector, the conflict could have broader economic consequences, particularly in the form of increased military expenditures across the region. As nations like Israel and its Arab allies channel more resources into defense, economic growth may slow due to declining foreign investment and heightened geopolitical uncertainty. Israel, which has built its economy on technology and foreign investment, could see a downturn if investor confidence is shaken by prolonged instability. Likewise, Lebanon, already suffering from a severe financial and political crisis, is at risk of further destabilization, as its proximity to Hezbollah makes it a key player in the regional conflict. The long-term economic consequences for both nations and the wider Middle East are deeply concerning, with the potential to undermine years of development and growth in an already volatile region. A significant escalation in the Iran-Israel conflict could dramatically shift the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East, forcing regional powers to reassess their alliances and strategies. Countries like Saudi Arabia and Egypt, traditionally cautious about becoming directly involved in conflicts, may find themselves under pressure to take sides or bolster their military defenses. Saudi Arabia, in particular, has historically viewed Iranian influence with deep suspicion, and may respond to a major escalation by strengthening its ties with Israel or enhancing its own military capabilities.
Israeli media is reporting that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made a secret visit to Saudi Arabia.
Such a shift would mark a significant realignment in regional politics as these nations strive to counter what they perceive as an existential threat from Tehran's growing influence.
Because this peace will eventually expand to include other Arab states, and ultimately, it can end the Arab-Israeli conflict once and for all.
The United States, already deeply involved in the region due to its alliance with Israel, could find itself drawn even further into the conflict. President Joe Biden's administration has repeatedly reaffirmed its ironclad commitment to Israel's security, with Biden emphasizing that any direct Iranian aggression will be met with swift and decisive reprisals. This stance not only reflects the US's strategic interest in maintaining regional stability, but also signals Washington's readiness to directly engage Iranian forces or proxies if necessary. Increased US military presence in the region, whether through direct intervention or bolstered support for Israel, risks intensifying tensions between Washington and Tehran. The potential for miscalculation in such a volatile environment could trigger a broader conflict that might be difficult to contain. Moreover, as regional powers are drawn into the conflict, we may witness a reconfiguration of alliances across the Middle East. The Gulf Cooperation Council countries, traditionally neutral or cautious in their stance towards Israel, may find that their security interests are increasingly aligned with Israeli efforts to counter Iranian aggression. This could lead to deeper military and strategic partnerships, with the GCC nations taking a more active role in shaping the region's future. However, this realignment could also strain existing partnerships and fuel new rivalries, further complicating the already intricate web of Middle Eastern geopolitics.
The destructive war that has been waged by Israel on Palestinian territories in Lebanon, where war crimes have become a terrifying routine in the absence of any international accountability, stresses the urgent need for a comprehensive settlement of the conflict based on a just solution for the Palestinian issue, according to international resolutions.
The escalating conflict between Iran and Israel may push Iran to accelerate its nuclear program as a strategic deterrent against Israeli military strikes. Iran's nuclear ambitions have been a source of tension since the early 2000s, leading to the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, an agreement designed to curb Iran's nuclear capabilities in exchange for sanctions relief. However, after the US unilaterally withdrew from the JCPOA in May 2018, Iran began to gradually reduce its compliance, stepping up its nuclear activities. Reports from 2024 indicate that Iran has enriched uranium to near weapons-grade levels, with stockpiles exceeding 3,800 kilograms, far beyond what is needed for civilian use. This development has heightened alarm among Western powers, signaling that Tehran may be positioning itself for a more aggressive nuclear posture, further destabilizing the already fragile security landscape of the Middle East. The potential acceleration of Iran's nuclear program could spark a dangerous arms race in the region. Nations like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates may feel compelled to pursue their own nuclear capabilities in response to Iran's advancements, particularly if they perceive an existential threat emerging from Tehran's nuclear ambitions. Saudi Arabia has made it clear that it would consider developing nuclear technology should Iran continue down this path, a move that would significantly complicate diplomatic efforts to maintain stability in the region. The prospect of multiple Middle Eastern powers possessing nuclear weapons would not only increase the risk of military confrontations, but also elevate the stakes of any future conflict, as the deterrent power of nuclear arsenals could lead to a new, perilous phase in regional geopolitics. Iran's recent military actions against Israel mark a critical escalation in their long-standing and deeply fraught conflict. This transition from proxy warfare to direct military confrontation signals a dangerous new phase in the struggle between these two regional powers. The precarious nature of Iran-Israel relations not only threatens the stability of the Middle East, but also raises significant concerns for the global community. With vital trade routes and energy supplies at risk, as well as the potential for a nuclear arms race, these stakes have never been higher. Urgent diplomatic interventions are needed to prevent further deterioration of the situation as regional and international actors strive to maintain a delicate balance between deterrence and de-escalation. That's it from the team at the Global Insight for now. We want to hear what you think. How do you believe that this conflict will evolve in the coming months? Do you see a path for diplomatic resolution? Or is the region heading towards a larger confrontation? How do Iran's nuclear advancements influence your perspective on the future of Middle Eastern stability? As always, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel here at the Global Insight. And until next time, stay tuned.